professor in the Department of Counseling and Higher Education in the Patent College of Education. I'm the co-host of the session, and my another co-host, Dr. Chris Lewis, is sitting here. So this is one of the events for the International Education Week, and it's also a class meeting for my International Comparative Higher Education course. We decided to open to public to benefit more students. And we have an online session recorded as well. So you are welcome to check it online later or spread to other students. I want to first thank my student for helping me organize the event and setting up the classroom. Thank you. Ohio University has 1,200 international students from all over the world who study abroad in the United States. And at the same time, we have a lot of opportunities sending our domestic students to study in foreign countries. So Fullbright program is one of the nationally competitive programs studying abroad. Study abroad is important to build the global peace and economic prosperity. And for individuals who study abroad, they develop a deeper understanding of the global issue. They build stronger intercultural communication skills and global competency, better foreign language skills, improved professional image, greater ability to handle cultural ambiguity and overall maturity. At the same time, however, there are quite a few barriers that prevent students from studying abroad, such as cost, time conflict, and discomfort in foreign culture and family issues. So the main purposes of today's panel event is to motivate more students to participate in study abroad opportunities and inform students about the benefits and the impact of Fullbright Scholar and other study abroad opportunities, as well as introducing the on-campus resources that can help overcome those barriers and facilitate study abroad opportunities. So today's agenda is we first have Dr. L.J. Edmonds, the Vice Provost for Global Opportunities and International Study, to give us welcome remarks. Then we will have Dr. Chris Lewis, the Director of Nationally Competitive Awards, to introduce Fullbright program and other competitive study abroad programs and OU, and introduce the panelists. Then we will have the panelists to discuss their experience and impact of Fullbright Scholarship. In the end, we will open the floor for Q&A. So we also have a survey for you to fill out to assess the student familiarity about the study abroad opportunities on campus. So you can fill out during the event. So now, please join me in welcoming Dr. L.J. Edmonds to give us some opening remarks.
I feel pretty privileged to be part of this eminent group right here. So just a couple of things that I feel very honored actually to be able to say hello to everybody, to know everybody on the panel. And you know, it's true that the Fullbright program provides you with this incredible responsibility to be your ambassador for your university, your community, your family, and your country. But I don't know about other people who've traveled and experienced abroad, that often the most important lesson of doing a study away is you learn about your own country and you learn about your own community. And it's really quite a special experience because you're all of a sudden able to see yourself in a much broader context. And so that's a very powerful contribution that study away opportunities offer. And I'm sure you all experience that same recognition as you're going. And often when you're going, you're not thinking about that part. You're thinking about, in many respects, you know, what you're going to learn and what you're going to experience overseas, and the shouldering responsibility that as a Fulbrighter, you have this incredible role that you play. But notwithstanding, the other piece really is how much you learn about yourself and about your own community. And then you can share that. And when you come home, that's also equally powerful because you will always have the Fulbright experience. You'll never lose that. And that's a big ticket. And for those who are thinking about the Fullbright, the brand recognition of Fullbright is in itself a career opportunity. I mean, people who read a resume and see you've done a Fullbright, that increases your brand. Because as you know, it's extremely competitive. Whether you're coming to the United States or you are going somewhere else, you are a proud Fulbrighter, as you all know, because it's quite a process. But as an employer, it's also something that we really recognize. The other piece about it is that I think as a Fulbrighter, you do have this responsibility, I think, of encouraging others to study away, because not enough people do. And the point I'd like to make is that you can, and they can. There are lots of opportunities, even within our own campus. And since we're being recorded, I'm just going to list them, because I think it would be helpful for you all to know that the Fulbright is part of a broad story here at Ohio University, because we put a lot of importance on the opportunity of all of our students going abroad. So I'm just going to get this little note here and list them. So examples are the travel grant from HCOM. These are for graduate students. HCOM travel grant, the Diversity Travel Award, the Regional and E-Campus Student Scholarship, the Foreign Language Immersion Scholarship. The Boundless Scholarship, by the way, is for Center for International Students, both undergrad, grad, and certificate. And then leading into undergrad programs, there's the First Gen Scholarship, the Regional and E-Campus Student Scholarship, the Gilman Incentive Grant, which is another highly competitive program. I think few of us are very familiar with that. The Foreign Language Immersion Scholarship, the Needs-Based Travel Grant, the Merit Scholarship, the Diversity Travel Award, and again, the Boundless Scholarship. So let me just end by thanking Jamie and Chris for organizing this, because this really is a very powerful community of Fulbrighters that we have here. I'm very proud to see the colleagues that you've been able to amass. And I wish there was more people here, but the fact that you do have a tape will give an opportunity for people to attend. But I do know that anybody who is fortunate to do Fulbright will never look back. And it is, again, launching the next phase of your career. So I'm sure today you're just going to underscore just how valuable and rich this experience is for you and all that get to interact with you. So thank you for the chance to say hello, and thank you for organizing this. And also thanking you for making it part of International Education Week, because again, it raises the profile of all of what we do here on our campus for and with our students.
Okay, so we'll get started. I'm just going to provide a little bit of information, reiterating much of what's already been said, and then we'll sort of jump into the discussion. But so my name is Chris Lewis. I'm the director of the Office of Nationally Competitive Awards, which is a mouthful, so we just call it ONCA for short. And I'm really happy that you've joined us today for this event, which is designed for all of us really to learn from the amazing community of Fullbright Scholars that we have here at Ohio University, all of whom I have great respect and admiration for. Because through the process of applying for something like the Fulbright, they have to advocate for themselves in the face of pretty extreme odds. You know, the acceptance rate for Fulbright is sometimes as low as 5% or 10% or 15%. So the sort of self-advocacy that's required for this kind of opportunity is pretty amazing and impressive. I also have great respect for them because in the process of applying, they're not only advocating for themselves, but they're advocating for increased cross-cultural communication globally, because that's really what the hallmark of the Fulbright program is. It was founded in 1946. It's designed to support US students, recent graduates, teachers, professors, and other professionals as they travel outside of the United States for 9 to 12 months, conducting research or teaching or pursuing professional work. There's other parts of the Fulbright program that support international students, teachers, and professors as they study and teach here in the United States. But what sort of all the wings or arms of the program have in common is that Fulbrighters have to do this kind of juggling act where you're pursuing your own individual work while abroad, but at the same time, you're in this position of being an ambassador and a representative and a diplomat for your own country and culture in a new area. So today's discussion will help us just sort of learn from your experiences what that means to you. So again, for the first 40 minutes or so, we'll talk just with the panelists, and then we'll open it up to questions after that. So let's just kind of go down the line for the table. Everyone can introduce themselves, tell us where you're from, what you're studying, and anything else kind of fun.
Sorry. Hello all, my name is Darin Tagros. I'm pursuing a dual master's in international development and public health. I'm from Palestine, Jerusalem. I received Fulbright after it was shared. It's a long process, competitive process, and I feel I'm honored to be part of this community. I came here to pursue my master's at Ohio University, and since then it has been a wonderful experience. I'm a runner. I love running, and in Athens, Ohio, where I'm living nowadays, I ran my second half marathon. That's it really.
Hi everyone, my name is Ria. I'm from Athens and I studied political science in undergrad here at Ohio University. And last year I was a Fullbright grant recipient in Madrid, Spain. And I'm really excited to be here with all of you today.
She's the daughter of Professor Chris Butt in the Department of Counseling and Education.
Hi everyone, I'm Hayas Kavmatian. I'm from Armenia. I'm really very lucky being from Madrid because of the Fullbright Scholar from Armenia, because only 2 people got the State Department funding for Fullbright program, and only 5 people have been able to do Fullbright because of the donor. So only 2 people, and I'm one of them. So it's really very very challenging program. Sometimes it uplifts you, it lifts you, and make you believe that everything is possible when you have a goal and when you have to believe in yourself. But sometimes it also gives challenging when you are going deeper and you are exploring cultures, geographies which come on your way. So maybe we will be able to talk it more deeper.
My name is Omar, and I'm from Benin Republic. Benin is in West Africa, a Francophone country. I've been the only one from Benin for the past 4 years. I always find myself explaining where Benin is, and it's always been good. We are right by Nigeria, Togo, Burkina Faso, and Niger. I came to OU in 2016 as a Francophone. I had to do an with the English Fullbright intensive English program, 2 semesters, then I transitioned into my master's. Initially, I was just sent here for that program, English program, and my placement officer was applied for me in the university. But at the time, I just really made a lot of friends, and I just feel like I'm not going anywhere else. But it really took, because I have to defend, I have to make a case for it, because I received recognition from other universities that people are looking why. I want to stay at home and then other options. I did my pre-academic English program here. Why wouldn't I try different experience in the institution? I just have to try it here. I stayed. I finished my Fullbright in 2018, and now I'm second year student in high school. It's been quite a ride.
Hi everyone. My name is Salome Yuso. Originally from Kenya. I'm a second year doctoral student in the application and student affairs. So I got my Fullbright in 2015. It was a 1-year program, exchange program. So I came as a Fullbright language teaching assistant, and my responsibilities included teaching Swahili, like being a Swahili teaching assistant, and also being a cultural ambassador. And during that time, I was allowed to take a couple of classes, like in different departments, mostly about American culture and whatever else I was interested in. And during that period, I got to explore different things, and it just was a great opportunity for me to learn about second language teaching. And I realized that in as much as I had been given that opportunity to teach Swahili as a native speaker, I didn't have an idea how to teach that particular language to second language. And so it just made me develop like this task to want to know, like, how can I be an effective teacher? How can I help other students like be able to learn? And given that I was also teaching English as a second language back in Kenya, it was also an opportunity for me to learn. Like when I go back, how can I be able to reach students and provide for them like different opportunities and strategies for them that. So after my 1-year program, I feel like I have not learned enough. So I applied for master's program in the University of Berlin. I graduated and I also realized I'm not learned enough. So I went ahead to apply for my PhD program, Education and Student Affairs. So I think for me, Fullbright has just been a big avenue, like the greatest avenue to open like different channels for me to be able to learn so much about myself, like my skills, my abilities, and what can I do to grow as a person, and what can I do to grow as a friend, as an instructor, and just professionally. So yeah, I'm really grateful.
I'm Catherine Kutcher. I'm the Assistant Director for Undergraduate Programs in the Center for International Studies. And I was a Fullbright Scholar to Kenya in 2007 to 2008 when I was working on my dissertation research. I was here in the Cultural Studies and Education program, PhD program. I'm from Delaware, Ohio, so I'm an Ohioan American. And I'm also have a background in anthropology, women's gender and sexuality studies, and African studies. So my research was focused on grassroots women's organizations and how they promoted popular education and community development in Kenya. And this was during a period of an election that turned to post-election. So I'll talk about that in a bit, but really I felt like the Fullbright program enabled me to go back to East Africa, where I had studied abroad a decade earlier, and have a deeper independent research experience. And the connection with the Fullbright community and the embassy community really helped me open up a network into the field of women's organizations in Kenya. So I'll tell you more about that.
Great. So I'd love to hear how you all heard about the program, because as you can see, it's challenging even getting the word out about the program and about this opportunity. So let's just hear how you found out about it.
I'll start. So I'll tell you one thing. There are lots of opportunities available, like Dr. Ajay listed a long list of available opportunities. As long as you know yourself more, you know what you want more, it will be easier to start shortlisting the opportunities that would be beneficial for you. For me, since my undergrad, I did my undergrad in business administration at Bethlehem University at my home country. And they used to host sessions like this. I used to go and attend these sessions since I was a sophomore. And I was like, okay, it's not time. Like they still list lots of requirements. You have to have like 2 years experience. You have to have a bachelor degree. You have to have like different requirements. Each scholarship has different requirements. And they are competitive, as we shared earlier. But I always knew that that was my dream. I turned it into a goal. I started working towards it. I was like, okay, these are the list of requirements. I know I want it because I wanted to pursue my professional and personal development further. And I know that study abroad teaches you lots of things. When you get out of your comfort zone, you got to explore lots of new things. You got to develop. It's not only about you. Also, you would be an ambassador for your country. You would interact and share a lot beyond yourself and beyond your even personal and professional development. So I knew that was something I wanted to pursue. And I got to work for a couple of years. I worked 1 year in a private sector. And then through that work experience, I knew, okay, that wasn't the thing I wanted. Then I moved more towards nonprofit organizations and the development field. I worked for another year in that. I was like, okay, that's what I want to work in. I was like pursuing my passion. I felt I wanted to make more impact in that. I felt like others had the vision that that's the route I wanted to take. And then that was the right time to apply for Fullbright. I worked on my application. I developed it as much as I could. And then I applied for Fullbright. So it's also about, it starts from the university. Don't wait until you have all the requirements. You can like start working on getting all these requirements and developing yourself until you reach that opportunity. So that's my story.
And Rita, you were on campus, right?
Yeah, I was on campus, and I was in the Honors Tutorial College, which is housed in the same building as ONCA. And all HTC students do a first-year seminar, and there there was an opera presentation during the seminar, and I learned about Fulbright and a few other programs at that time. And I had known that I had wanted to live in Spain sometime after graduation since I was in high school. And once I learned about Fulbright, I found this would be a really incredible opportunity. And since I learned about it early, I was able to be mindful about my coursework as I went through undergrad and think about what would help prepare me to apply for the Fulbright. And different countries have different kinds of Fulbright programs, so I decided I wanted to be a language and culture assistant and go with that application. And because of that, I was able to plan ahead, and I did a study abroad program in Ecuador where I did teaching English as a foreign language, and getting that certification and having that teaching experience really affirmed for me that that was an interest of mine and that I wanted to work in a school in Spain. So learning about it early definitely helped prepare me for my future with Fulbright.
And I believe that having clear professional goals and clear purpose helps you to apply to Fulbright, because no one is going to apply Fulbright if he or she doesn't see him or her in a way that he wants to be. I applied to Fulbright after 9 years of radiation medicine. So my work allowed me to find a mission in this life, and it's really very difficult. Like, it took for me 9 years. And that mission, that power, that passion that I have towards that professional goals, which includes like, which is beneficial to my own country, allowed me to take this path and to take this very competitive and very difficult path. But and I learned from Fullbright, from the Peace Corps volunteers who are doing volunteering in Armenia. And also, generally, I learned from US and C people who are doing a very great job in Armenia. They are very communicative, they are very open towards the local people. So they truly helped me to explore Fulbright more, to understand its value, its goals, and just, there are many projects that you can apply just for applying. But if you are going to apply for Fulbright, you are going to apply it for your, making your dreams and goals come true. So that's how they help to understand.
Well, I think my Fulbright journey was really started from high school for myself, and I would say also I had a Peace Corps volunteer as an English teacher. I also had a high school Vietnamese, someone from the just studied English in Ghana and Kenya. Teaching English. We also had Fulbright friends, and I think they didn't mention it as Fulbright, but they just told me they have lots of opportunities at the US Embassy. If you get your high school program, get yourself into university, work very hard. I think you're very good to do it. So as soon as I got my high school diploma, I went, I think after the first week of classes, I went straight to the US Embassy, and they had the American Cultural Center, and they had I enrolled, and I had my library card. I asked them whether they have any information that they want to study in the US, and they provided me with a long list of information sections that I can attend. And that's how I started to feel getting involved in the US Embassy. I was very involved. I went there with a couple of friends to set up a meeting club, which is still a reference for platform to function. We were not that good in English, it's pretty much with Franklin, which is pretty much a mix of English and French. But I was very much passionate about English language, and French was also an advantage for me as we tried to local language. So we're walking back and forth with people, and they had an education, USA education there. And the coordinator of the Fullbright program, who was also a graduate of my university, was talking about Fullbright, and it was very early in my program too. But I did take notes, and I remember asking to provide me the application form. It was very intimidating. 15, I think about 15 pages. For my first year, I started feeling that whatever I thought I didn't understand because of my From time the time I was going back and forth with my reading club and volunteering opportunities at the U.S. Embassy. And then I had the opportunity to speak with the ambassador at some point during one of our activities that we did. It would be a great, you'd be very competitive and you'd be good for Fullbright Scholarship. I'd be considered applying for 2 years before. And then I graduated in 2015 with my bachelor's degree. I haven't defended my thesis, but I was working part-time with efforts and another local NGO doing some interpreting and producing job when I was told that I had to come on the plane to be because I was even what was blocking me from applying for Fulbright. I had to get the certificate. I did graduate, but I had to defend in the sense. So I did defend, and then my was challenging its running here and there. And I also had to take TOEFL. It was really a short notice, and I was fortunate enough to the U.S. Embassy to be certified. I did it again last time.
I think that's so helpful to share that intimidation is kind of a feeling that one has when you're approaching Fulbright, but that you can nevertheless kind of push through that feeling and apply and receive the grant.
So personally, I learned about the Fullbright application from a professor of mine when I was in my undergrad, in my third year. So we have like an intern, like you do an internship where you have to go and teach, and so they send like professors to come and observe and give you feedback before you can graduate. So during my internship, the professor who came to observe one of my classes, and we were talking about like the feedback and some of the things that I needed to do better, my strengths and all that. And he noted that I was really good at integrating like cultural components into the language classroom and engaging students and all that. So he asked me like, what are your goals after you graduate? And I was like, look for a job. And I've been looking at Commonwealth scholarships because some of them like on Facebook sometimes you see someone just post, like Commonwealth application scholarships for countries that subscribe to the Commonwealth. Oh, well, the Commonwealth is, I think, for countries that are colonized by the British. So,
Former British
okay, yeah. So I told him about my interest in applying for the Commonwealth scholarships. And he told me that there was also like a Fullbright exchange scholarship, and if I was interested, like he would email me the link. So that's how I got into what Fullbright was all about. And I looked at the application, and it was very long, very intimidating, and I was just in my third year. And so I left it, like I didn't even continue with it. And in my fourth year, he was also one of the professors teaching one of my classes, and he also talked about that particular scholarship to other students. And I remember talking about it with my friends, and we were like, no, like things like that, you can't even get them, we haven't graduated, like it seemed like a dream that would never come true. But I decided to like even just start, filling out my name and talking to him more about that. And I told him about my fears of not having because I had not like graduated and gotten my certificate. And like, no, you can, as long as you have like all your transcripts, you can send them in and they can consider your application as long as like by the time you get your certificate, you can upload it and show that proof that you've already graduated. So I fill that out. I had people read it for me. I had the professor look at the application for me, and he was very supportive, like guiding me through the application process. And yeah, and I think me and one other friend of mine applied for my scholarship, and both of us were able to put the application. So I think also talking to your professors and asking them about what scholarship opportunities they have an idea of, and they can guide you through that.
Yeah, and I think I also started thinking about having an experience like this when I was in high school. I met some former Peace Corps volunteers, also students who studied abroad, and I decided to go to a small college in Michigan that promoted study abroad and study away programs, Kalamazoo College. So I was able to study abroad in Kenya for 6 months as an undergraduate student. I was a very low-income student. I had no family support, so I played the financial aid and scholarships and loans game. I learned how to write applications. And then later, when I came to OU, I had a foreign language and area studies scholarship to study Swahili, and was early, tagged by Claude Felter, who was then one of the Fullbright coordinators here at OU at the time. She really encouraged me to apply for the Fullbright program. And later I worked in the CIS. She kept kind of pestering me, encouraging me. And later when I decided to go back for my PhD, I started attending info sessions and really started to kind of gel my ideas. So I would say it took years of consideration and overcoming my imposter syndrome and intimidation. But when I did finally narrow down to my dissertation topic and started assembling a committee, I realized I had the support that I needed. So I went ahead and usually Fulbright recommends that you apply to a country where you have never traveled before. And I thought I would be disqualified to go to Kenya because I had already studied abroad there. But it had been about a decade since I had been there. So I kind of used that as leverage to say it's been a long time, but I've been there, I know the context, I know the language. And Kenya is also a country where I think they only give funding for 2 students a year, maybe, to go. So it was a very competitive process, but I think we'll talk about that.
Yeah, but just to reiterate, it sounds like individual encouragement is so significant and important in this process too. Yeah, we can talk a little bit. We've heard about the application process from some of you. I always tell students, the process of applying is beneficial regardless of the outcome. Do you agree? You can disagree, but what do you think?
So before you talk, since this is being recorded, please raise your volume and speak up. That's current, but for the best quality, you have to. Thank you.
Okay, let me say first about the process, then I get back to your statement.
Okay.
So first of all, as I understood, it varies the process for application from one program to another, and then even among countries it varies. For us, we had to meet certain requirements like 2 years work experience. We had to take some exams like GRE, TOEFL, and other exams to meet certain requirements. And we had to have written essays, all of these parts of the application. Work hard as much as you can on these. Ask people to proofread them for you. Make sure that they would be outstanding. So when people would go through different applications, why should they choose your application? Why do you believe you should take the scholarship? And it's not only about you. They want to see that they want to invest in a person that would make impact in both of the communities. The community they will be leaving and they will be getting back to, and the community they will be visiting. So you need to reflect why you would be that person. In addition, they would later on make shortlisting. They would take you to interview process and then another shortlisting process. So it's a long process, and lots of people sadly during the process get rejection. About the outcome of the process, if you get it or if you get rejection. If you get it, that's great. It's a start of the adventure. It's not the end. And if you did not get it, that means you should get feedback. Ask for feedback. Even if they didn't offer you feedback, ask them, what shall I improve? Why my application wasn't chosen? What do you think would be something that would have changed the situation? And reapply again. Don't let that put you down. And even though the process might be intimidating, I agree with you, it's intimidating to apply for a job or for anything where you might be judged or rejected or accepted. But if you don't put yourself out there, you would never get it. So you need to put yourself out there and take the risk, because if you want to gain something worth it, like study abroad or one experience that will change your life, you need to put yourself out of your comfort zone. And that's what Fullbright is about. I think the outcome is important if you want to apply because you want to get it. It's one of your goals because it would like get you closer to where you want to achieve. It's what you want to achieve. And even if you did not get it in the first time, it's not the end. That's still part of your application that you need to develop further your application. So I believe the outcome is important, but it's not the end. It's part of the process.
And I can speak a little bit to applying for the Fullbright US student program to go to another country. But through Ohio University, I filled out an online application, which was biographical data and short answer questions. And I also had 2 short essays that were a personal statement and a statement of grant purpose. Beyond that, I collected 3 recommendations, and to go to Spain, I had to prove that I was at least intermediate in Spanish. So I did a language assessment with a professor. And then once all of those application materials were together, I did a panel interview with the then director of ANCA and professors who very graciously served on my committee. And they gave me feedback on my application and talked to me about how I might elevate it and sell myself further. And that was incredibly helpful. I don't know if I would have gotten the more out there feedback. And I would also say, even if you're not sure about what the odds are or you don't feel super confident, you should always apply to things. Best case scenario, you get the award, and if not, everything is a learning experience and nothing is wasted time or experience. So you can learn about how to improve yourself, but you also will learn about writing essays and how to talk about yourself and reflect on your goals. You get recommendations, and professors and people who are willing to advocate for you will also be willing to purpose those in the future. And through Fulbright, I had so much support on campus to even get the award, and the professors who were there for me offered a lot of support and encouragement, and I'm very grateful to all of them.
And that happens for every Ohio University student who applies for Fulbright. You get the support of at least 3 faculty members on campus who usually you don't know and who are providing you with objective assessments of your application.
Because it helps, truly helps. And I would only identify with application process a purpose statement. It's not whether you're applying from the United States or you're applying as an international student. It's the main a key path that takes you to the interview. Because the other things is just you're listing your preferences, you're listing your background, education, and professional. But the purpose statement is the main a background that takes you to the interview. So the purpose statement is not only about sharing your goals. It's in a metaphorical way, but also showing the nominating committee in a practical way why it is based on these things. You have requirements, very short words, but still you need to manage to list in a practical way why you think that will help not only you but also to your country. Because Fulbright is not based on though it's goes through individual, but it goes through individual to the community. How your community will be benefited, and it's also great that you show though you're talking about your educational and professional background on the application, but it's really very nice if you can also manage to link your experience and what kind of experience you found out, what kind of gaps you found out during your experience, through your experience in your brain, to push it back. And then it comes interview. Because remember that when I was going the interview, I was preparing for the interview, listening to Bon Jovi's "It's My Life" music, the song, because it's my life. I was telling you, literally, I'm going to take stage. It's my life. I'm going to beat everyone to be there. And I truly nailed the interview. And they told me oh, Hayasa, you have 9 years, after 9 years. And I'm the vice president of during that time I was the vice president of one of the leading organizations, providing humanitarian aid to Syrian refugees. More than 6,000 beneficiaries have been registered. we are doing like a financial aid information, providing apartment, and like they're telling, oh, you're like a career girl, you can just go to the government. Why you want to take to the Fulbright and go then government? I said, well, like when I was 9 years old, I get the best lesson of my life ever. When my father took me to the drawing school, the teacher told me, when you are drawing, when you are finishing your work, you need to take a step back to see what is missing in your work, what you have drawn. So in 9 years, I draw my professional experience through something. But now I'm going back, taking steps back to the United States, and I want to see the gaps through the lens of the U.S. policy. And when I brought all that experience and also something that linked to the profession, I showed them the passion that I have, and it was really very nice being nominated. And then comes in my country, they are saying you are nominated, but you don't know. After 1 year, you will know you have been asked to succeed or not. Then I took jury and TOEFL. It was really very difficult because I took TOEFL exams 5 times because when I was going, the computer was shutting down. I don't know. So 5 times the computer was shutting down. And it was really, but and even I can remember that when I was walking on the street and I'm saying, oh, am I going to succeed or not? Then someone is coming with a t-shirt and says, oh, hard work pays off. Saying, well, I was talking with me. And then I'm saying, okay, will I succeed? And then someone coming with a t-shirt and says, yeah, it's saying journey is success is not a destination, it's a journey. Saying, okay, light talks with me, I need to do it. And I did it. So, just finalizing this part, I want to mention that many people will come on that path, will say that you are not going to succeed. Many people will come and will give you many a good or bad advice, but the main important thing is the belief and confidence in yourself, because that belief and confidence takes you from A to Z. And if you somehow lose that belief or confidence, please go back and bring it with you. Don't allow it to be a part, because that's the most important when you're applying to the Fulbright. And even when you're applying to anything that is really very important.
I think I'm going to require every applicant to find a theme song.
By the way, I was crying when I was so happy.
Building on what Hayat said, I think really what I found also going to Fulbright is wherever I did. Like when I went to my Fulbright enrichment seminar, which is 3 to 4 days, I met Fulbrighters from about 52 different countries. There was a Fulbright. You hear that when you think you have the connections with the best for you, there was literally someone within that group who had to take TOEFL 11 times. In the process, that passed away. His mom passed away the last couple of months, and he was only making, I think, only $300. And he had to pay for TOEFL for $150. But he was very, very resilient in that process. And finally, he was telling that story for all the years. So building on that, in Benin, for example, you can get Fulbright to either do a master's or a PhD. I was coming for a PhD, so I had to have a bachelor degree, a transcript, 3 letters of recommendations. I think the 2 important aspects of that application form is that they all stated is the personal statement and the research objective. I know at least those I spent more than 4 months working on it, especially as someone who didn't have a strong background in English and Francophone. So I would write and edit, and I researched so many from the embassy. I was very involved in the embassy. from the embassy to my professors to my high school teachers and friends, and I've had also a good opportunity and the privilege of having like Fulbrighters from the they got Fulbright, they came here and taught for about 15 years. They're back sometimes, I mean, they're back and forth between US and the and I had some taught me, I had some advice from them, but I do believe that those aspects, those are key aspects of how you tell your story and how you also convince them about your research objectives and why you are the best fit. My application, you were saying the outcome will apply for the sake of, at least for the sake of experience. When I heard back from, it was a long when I finally heard back from them that I was shortlisted for an interview, I was very happy. And 2 days before the interview, they called me and say, "Don't show up. Don't show up. We think your TOEFL score is very low, but you have a strong application." And I remember my response to that person was, "Well, at least I have experience. I'm coming back strong next year." The following day, I had my medical session that lead that program. We had the session for 2 hours, and after that, the coordinator feedback met me and talking, engaged me, and advising me. This is just really a good opportunity for me. And I'm not giving back. I'm coming back next year very strong. I'm glad my application is strong with just TOEFL. But I only got the voucher like a week before the deadline. I didn't prepare that. I literally just signed and then I got signed. But I was able to get at least the minimum score they wanted to at least qualify for pre-academic interviews. So we talked, and I told him honestly that wasn't disturbing. It was very challenging, but also experience. And I went back home again. I think for the superman report that said, "Hey, we went back to arbitration. We think we shouldn't be disqualified for which we've seen what we've been doing at the embassy and the medical cultural center. We've been very engaged. We want to be if you'd like to."
That's great.
That's it. I spent the whole night with her. Following the Friday at 10, when I walked into that interview room, I saw familiar faces. That was not intimidating at all. I think that was when before that, not to brag about this, but to be honest, before even they engaged me with the questions, I just felt like it was great. And halfway through the interview, also I did feel that this is fine. I like that part. And definitely right after the interview, I was on my way to that I should prepare to take it here. But that's fine. And we were, I think, out of 400 something. We were 7 shortlisted for after the interview to the GRE University.
Wow. I should also add that for the US student program, there's no GPA minimum. So sometimes people think that certain things disqualify them, but it actually doesn't. It's like when someone else is sort of imposing a standard that Fulbright itself isn't actually asking for. So unfortunately, that happened. Do you all have anything to add about the application process?
I think they've covered the important part of it, but I just that's like I think for me the personal statement was like the biggest part of it, because I felt like this was my opportunity to tell my story in a compelling way. Because some of those questions, like you just have to answer according to the question. But with the personal statement, I felt like I had the flexibility to present myself the best way I know how, and to make sure that I can align my goals with their goals and the goals that I want, and also to tell them like why this is so important to me and how it's not only going to benefit me, but it's going to benefit the community that I'm going to come back to after the Fulbright.
I think that's so important to write a compelling statement to connect this work to something outside of yourself. You know, to be working toward a broader sort of mission.
Yeah, so I feel like for me that was like my opportunity to shine. I think I did. Well, I did. Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, the talk, like the talk one, I think that was my first time with the standardized exam. And I don't know how to type very fast. And it's time then actually like pick at the keyboard with my fingers. But it was like, so there's a lot of tension in that sense. But I think preparation helps. But also if you don't have the resources and the materials to prepare, how you prepare. I feel like a lot of like the other applicants were lacking in that sense because you don't have the TOEFL book, you don't have the money to invest in the materials, you don't have money to get, like even internet access to be able to get like the practice tests online, and then you have to go and do this very intimidating computer-based exam that's going to determine if you qualify. And yeah, I don't know, like it was just such a big deal. And yeah, I mean, at least the comprehension part helped because but the typing part and the speaking part, so yeah.
This clarifies for me so much in terms of the Fullbright International Student Program, the level of cost and engagement that it takes relative to applying for the Fullbright US Student Program. It's like very drastic, I would say, between the two.
Yeah, so I applied as a Fulbright US student, and I think my process was similar to what was described earlier. It took about 6 months for me to finally get the application materials together and then a long series of revisions and feedback and editing, and this was all happening at the same time as development of the dissertation proposal, research clearance to the government of Kenya, IRB to the institutional review board here, so it was like a lot of people weighing in on my plan. And that really helped to get that input from my committee members, but also from the research clearance and from the Kenyan side. I'd say the thing that, my language placement test was so different from the TOEFL. Like, it was a matter of setting up an appointment with the Swahili professor on campus. My first time meeting him, I went to his office, and it was a really pleasant, lovely exchange, and I listened to BBC Kenya and Swahili, and we talked about the news. So it was a very different, I think, less intimidating, more social engagement. It was an oral proficiency interview exam, so it wasn't like a TOEFL test. But it also gave me an opportunity to connect with the Kenyan faculty on this campus. I also met Edna Wambui at the time. She was a new professor of geography. She invited me to be a research assistant with her that summer. So, I felt like even in the process of applying, I got so much support. When I was reaching out to faculty members and alumni and friends from Kenya to help me make connections for affiliation, that was also a great opportunity to build a network prior to arriving in Kenya. This was even a year before I would go. And I got a lot of good clues also about my research topic because I was trying to study the Greenbelt movement. Their leader, Wangari Maathai, had just won the Nobel Peace Prize. Everybody wanted to interview her, and it was very hard to get a response back. I even went to meet her. And, I just learned that focusing on the leaders of a movement may not be the most effective strategy because they're super busy people, but they're kind of the tip of the iceberg. Think about all the other people that are making things happen at a grassroots level. That is the network that you need to plug into. And so I learned a valuable lesson in that process. And it's kind of like focusing on the US civil rights movement and only telling the story of Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or Rosa Parks. There were lots of other people on the ground doing work. So that was a really valuable lesson. And I'd say one of the best experiences for me was the interview process. There were 3 faculty members from, I believe, instructional technology, from I think biology and communications. And they had nothing to do with my research project. They were outside of my discipline, but they were very supportive. I remember them saying to me, like, you just told the story as if you are the perfect person to do this, and your whole life you've been planning to do this project. So I got a lot of good feedback from that. And I'd say one of the biggest challenges is when I found out in the initial notification, I found out I was an alternate. And I was devastated. And I was like, oh, I'm such a loser. All the imposter syndrome came back. I was like, I'm going to give up on my dissertation topic and just do something locally with organizations here. Because I didn't think I could go to Kenya without financial support. And in that time, it was kind of a reckoning with my committee and of myself saying, you know what, there's other sources of funding. I don't have to abandon this project. And in the end, I was chosen anyway. So don't give up, you know, like just because one door closes, another one might open. And you just have to remain faithful to your mission and your project. And luckily it was approved and I was successful in getting it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That happens so often. Alternates move into finalists. It happens regularly. And also what happens often is that someone applies for 1 year or 2 year and then receives the grant the third year. So sometimes it really is a years-long process to receive these. We're almost, I want to open it up to the audience, but can we jump to a question about ambassadorship? Because I'm just curious to hear from you all about sort of what you've learned about effective ambassadorship via your Fulbright experience.
So it was a wonderful experience. We had hard days. Like grad school is not easy, or like any experience that would put you out of your comfort zone. And some people, when they think, oh, you're living abroad, you're living in the US, you're living the American dream, it's different when you're living it. When you have like exams and assignments and you have lots of workload.
No, you're really living it.
We still have to try our best and like enjoy every day to the max, because also the period passes by so quickly. Like for example, I personally had some hard days when I fractured my foot. That's something you never imagined that you would go through. But through developing your resilience further and like learning how to overcome everything and like leaning on the people around you. There's lots of support. For example, the university here provides us with lots of support, the department, even Fullbright as like a scholarship that is funding you. They are always there to support you. And you're here also to support the community you're in through different programs where I've been an ambassador through, I was the president of the International Development Association. We worked with Fullbright also. We're still working also with different organizations. We have this event. It's a Friendsgiving that we're hosting on November 22nd. It's in partnership with different communities, different Fulbrighters, different international students, with ambassadors through different ways. You're all welcome to join us. It's different ways how we're making impact, how we're bridging the gaps between different communities, overcoming stereotypes. Even personally, before I came here to rural US, I had a different perspective about what's the US. I got to learn more about what's the US. Each community has different struggles that I even will share back at home, because people have different perspective about what's the US. People did not have a chance to meet a Palestinian before here. As I'm from Palestine, all what they know about is from what they see from the media. Palestine is beyond that. Palestine is the Holy Land. We have lots of foods, amazing culture, and we have diversity, different religions there. The media does not always reflect everything, and here comes our role to be ambassador. It's not only studying, completing our coursework, which is important, one of the main things that we're here for, but it's much, much beyond that. I encourage everyone to take opportunities where even if it will put you out of your comfort zone, but you'll be sharing about things maybe people would never know about other than interacting with you, because you're representing your country, you're representing even a community from the US that they didn't know much about.
Yeah, it's so important to be open-minded as you're interacting with people from communities that are different from yours. And I can say in my experience, I was working in a secondary school with kids who were between 11 and 18 years old. And many of them knew about the US from pop culture, but they knew about New York or LA or whatever they had seen in movies or TV. And for me, I'm a first-generation immigrant of Indian origin who grew up in Appalachia. So that brought together so many different identity elements that many of my students had never interacted with. And it was really great for me to be able to share that with them. And the other thing is listen to other people and make sure you're creating spaces for empathy where you can engage, share, and learn from each other. And so many people from other countries, like even my 12-year-old students in Spain, understand what is happening in the country and the history there.
And in my opinion, like when we are talking about ambassadorship of Fulbright, Fulbrighters are the ambassadors of mutual understanding and mutual respect. And when Fulbrighters coming together, they're always telling, if we have been a lot, there will be always peace and security. Because the Fulbright community among them, even when we are coming from the conflicts like countries, and we are like have common topics where, for example, in other cases we are just like fighting against each other, we have armed conflict together. But when we are coming together, that mutual understanding and that mutual respect allows us to have a way to the peace and security. That's what the ambassadorship of point of Fulbright. And Fulbright allows you also to be the part of the globalized world. Because in my country, for example, when I'm coming, like it's a country of, registered with a registered history of 3,000 years. We have that cultural history, that values. But when you're coming here, it seems that your values turns to the globalized world. We are globalizing. Like in my country, might be I'm like I will take something very seriously. Maybe like stop talking or stop listening to someone. But here, somehow I need to listen that person, and somehow I need to be with that person in a real, very respectful way. So that way, it means like you're truly having a way to them.
I think we've all highlighted that ambassadorship is an important aspect of Fulbright. Very, very important. In addition to completing your academic degree or fulfilling your teaching role, if you expect a TA, you are expected to share a piece of your culture and also combine and learn from your host country. I think for me, even I've been the president of Fullbright Scholars since 2000 before the before we handed it over. But we came up with international presentation on international perspective series where we give Fulbrighters the opportunity to talk about their country, to share a little bit about their country. That was a great platform for us. And also being here at OU, anytime I return to write, not only just at OU, but in entire Athens, and the only one. Okay, this is my opportunity to give the insider perspective to the people who have never been here. And I'm not just representing the honestly, I'm representing, I'm representing the country, and everywhere I go, I make sure I represent a positive impression. I do believe anything negative I leave, anyone who says someone, right up to me, you see someone either evangelist or before you say evangelist, you say it. That's what comes first.
Lots of pressure.
Yeah. So it's definitely a pressure. So I think, and also volunteers, I think seeking volunteer opportunity is very, very important. We've been trying to engage local high schools, but it really didn't work out much for life. Pretty much easy. But I remember there was a summer I did some work with works. I taught kids, I told stories, and I also taught some basic expression in 4 different languages from back home. I also humbled myself to learn from others.
So I think like LJ mentioned, as much as like you are the representative of your country, yes, for me I think ambassadorship has also been an opportunity for me to realize that it's okay not to know them, and be open to learning, because even as a language instructor, sometimes my students would point out something which I learned as a native speaker and I was never keen to understand like adjective and noun about like what's happening there. But then in that aspect, when they point that out, I have to take a step back from like my native speaker competency and go into my learning mode and try to figure it out. What is this? for me, it's been also just a process of learning about my language, learning about my culture, learning about like different other parts of Kenya that I have to admit, like, I don't know everything. And I've been shown like really cool pictures. I'm like, is this really in Kenya? Like, I have no idea. So, and then when I go back, like every time I travel back home, like I appreciate my country. And I take that piece of I miss home, but then I learned so much about home. And so ambassadorship for me has been a very big learning process, and just going and understanding it's okay not to know it.
Yeah, I think for me, being an American in Kenya taught me some valuable lessons about what it's like to be a stranger in a strange land. And I think that's partly why I'm a friend to so many international students now, because I just remember how much it meant to me to have the support and friendship of local people when I was abroad and missing home, missing my family. So that was a really key lesson for me. Also, being an ambassador of the US government under the Bush administration was a very big challenge for me, because I wasn't supportive of the policies of my government at the time, especially regarding the Iraq War. I had a lot of questions about that. I tried to avoid politics, but it's inevitable in Kenya that you get into these discussions with people. And so I really tried to take a position of humility and mutuality and reciprocity and respect. And again, like everyone else said, it's really important to get involved in the local community, try to get out of the bubble of other foreigners and make connections with local people, but invest in that local community as much as possible and be a friend. And it's really about direct diplomacy through educational exchange and friendship. It's not about colonialism. It's not about controlling other people. And I felt like I was maybe a different type of American than the other folks that they had encountered before. And so I really tried to position myself in that way as someone who was learning from people in the community rather than trying to impose policy or structural adjustment or economic hardship on people. And I think one of the valuable things that I learned was during a period of political violence, a lot of other folks pulled out of the country. The tourists left, the Peace Corps left, a lot of international organizations closed down, and Kenyans were feeling a bit abandoned. But I stayed, and a lot of other Fulbrighters stayed, and embassy staff stayed. And I think seeing that steady, friendship that we had, and my commitment to my research, it was really important to people. And so many people said, please tell Americans it's okay to come back to Kenya. Because in many ways, the economy there is very dependent on people like us visiting and touring and things like that. So I felt very strongly that it was my responsibility to embrace the communities where I have been embraced and to give something back. And one thing I'd say is that while you're studying other people, they're also studying you. And that's something I learned, like as an anthropologist and an ethnographer, it's all about this relationship of reflexivity and reciprocity. And as much as I was trying to observe people in their communities, they were also observing me and my reactions to them. So I like what you said about creating spaces for empathy and just trying to humble yourself to listen and to really learn from people around you.
That's great. Let's open this conversation up so everyone can kind of join. If you have particular questions or things that you want to kind of pick up on that we've been talking about.
I know that everyone has mentioned like what you've learned in the countries where you went, or the countries where you are now. I'm wondering how you were able to bring back what you learned as a Fullbright Scholar to your community, or what you plan to bring back and how you plan to use your experience as a Fulbrighter to help cultivate your communities back home.
In my case, I can start first.
in my case, as I have already had the experience, working experience with like a public policy, private and public partnership. So in that experience, I have already identified gaps. So when you're identifying gaps, you're also like able to illustrate how you're going to address them. So my goal is very clear for me. I believe, like through my educational background, I'm going back to Armenia to like work with government to address that gaps that have been identified from my role by me. So that's why I'm mentioning that having a clear goal and having a clear purpose, it's really very beneficial for you. Because when you know it, it's really very like Fulbright just like serves as a path taking you there. Like it gives you tools, skills, but practical things, the goals comes from you. So that's why it's very important. And so I'm going back to Armenia to work with government.
So I think for me, my experience as a second language instructor, it made me realize, like notice some of the, that you mentioned, like some gaps in how I was teaching them second language before in my country, and how like during like the numerous like professional developments that I did, like observing other teachers teach and like the classes that I took, I realized that we should have a change. For example, we used to have like comprehension passages that were talking about like abstract flow and all that, but we don't have some of that. And so like just trying to make sure that everything is cultural appropriate and something that students can relate to, so that they can be able to talk about it and making it more communicative. Because I realized that most of our education is usually geared towards preparing for exams. And so students we were learning to take the exam. And so trying to make sure that we also learn to retain something. It's just not for the exam. And so like every time I go home, I volunteer at my local high school to teach, and I try to have to structure my lessons differently, so that they can also get a different experience of that. And also I've also learned my Fulbright experience has also helped me realize a lot of the cultural wealth that we have in our society. Because I think in a way there's always this idea of looking to the West for solutions and answers and all that. But then having stepped from that environment, when I look back, I realize we have so much wealth in the community, and just trying to talk to the local youth and trying to help them identify even in an environment you can still make a difference, you can still be able to make a change with someone and tap into the resources in the society as well.
So I think me as a first generation college student, even though I didn't know this until right here, which is going to be what my focus is in my dissertation research and the experiences of this student. But I'm very concerned about student development. And as part of this, I was able relatively to pretty much get the support of college students from my community. I would say where I come from, I think 80 to 90%. So we honestly didn't. I didn't hear much about college until I got my high school and experienced it myself. So what I was able to do is that's how what I looked from this, gathering friends of mine who have been through the experience and who got their masters of their BA and explaining the importance of really making sure everyone who's getting their high school diploma, everyone who's in that high school to need to get at least need to know about the experience. So we were able to organize, I was able to come with them to organize some had people who just recently graduated from high school moving on to college, and I have friends of mine in my sector and our stories and people know about different reasons for even because there isn't really a good orientation that happens on our campus. So even coming here and even my orientation days seem to be very, very so I was like, this is something that I want to some extent with my capacity, see how I can do that with my product. I certainly don't have the power to do that because of all different, but at least I know from my community, I can make sure it's every president or anyone who, we're not all president, but I want to make sure at least everyone has the opportunity to hear from college or resources or someone sharing their stories, college stories with this people going into. It's generally very, very challenging for us. You were born, I was born in the northern part of the country, and it's pretty much a day trip to where I went to live. So it was also a big shift for me living in the city, so in my country. So that also is very challenging. I had to do that to them about those times. And I think that helped prepare them and also guide them as they do the truth. And I'm also representing with Samba. I'm also working for our foundation, where what I'm envisioning is local libraries and also making sure in rural areas I provide kids with scholarships and scholarships generally that's that I've been working on or 3 years to realize it.
For me, through our education, through my education, I gained lots of skills, additional skills through like different courses I've been taking. I gained further knowledge. I did several internships. One with Peace Corps. I worked in their headquarters in DC. And now I'm currently working with the American Red Cross, serving with the local community. With the Graduate Student Senate as being the president, all of these opportunities to develop your leadership skills, your teamwork skills, all of these things are preparing me further when I go back to my home community, where I'll be able to generate further impact. I aim also to mentor different young leaders who will be able hopefully to generate further impact. As it's not the end, it's like a chain that will continue to pass the knowledge, the experience, to encourage others to pursue and to make the change, because one person can't make the change on their own, but collectively with the community, that's how we can rise up together. And definitely being in touch with different people who I met throughout the way, who are making impact and change in different places, like hearing about all of these inspiring stories. Definitely we would still be in contact hopefully and supporting each other, visiting each other, because the world, as much as it's huge, as much as it's small, and hopefully we'll get to meet even in the future and interact. So it's not the end. We will always carry with us these memories, these experiences, and I aim to also have my own NGO back at home, and hopefully in the future become the Minister of Health, because currently I'm focusing on health, and I believe health is a human right. Now at the university, I'm working to improve the health insurance with the Graduate Student Senate and other organizations. We're making an evaluation also for the mental health services and counseling. So practicing all of these skills, implementing it here, and even taking the experience where we can also improve different communities and to access better experiences, hopefully to have better world. And that's the aim of Fullbright, to improve our world.
That's a great question.
Can I add something about that? So one thing that I've done since I've been back, and I've been back for a long time now, but I continue to promote mobility, both of international students coming here and American students going abroad, and that's something I do in my daily work in the office, is advising students, mentoring students through that process of applying for study abroad, or looking for funding. I think it's really key, and the cost and the privilege of study abroad is sometimes a barrier for a lot of people to have this experience. But I think programs like Fullbright and other scholarship programs make it more accessible for all kinds of students. So you know, that's part of my life's work, I feel, is promoting that. And then also just working with other community-based NGOs. Like, I learned so much about the processes of cooperative economic development and community-based organizing and food systems and popular education. So much I learned through my rich experience in Kenya. And even in my application, I found, you know, applications to life here in Appalachian Ohio, right? And so I see a lot of similarities between how rural communities are struggling through massive change in other parts of the world, and I'm bringing that knowledge back home here to southeastern Ohio. So, you know, I think it's really critically important for us to realize that the world is very small and very interconnected, and what seems irrelevant in another part of the world 6,000 miles away is very similar to what we're experiencing back home. And I feel like I'm a bridge for that, for other Americans to try to see that and translate that experience back here. My husband is a farmer, and he went with me, and it was his first experience leaving the US. And he was like, wow, you know, I learned so much about farming by working with farmers in Kenya for 3 months. He wasn't with me for the whole year, but I just feel like, you know, having those experiences is a bridge for our community to get a window into other parts of the world.
And to add to that, as much as we're so different, we're so much similar to each other. We have a lot in common.
Yeah.
And like finding all of these things that are in common, like building bridges instead of building walls among each other. That's how we can like overcome the conflicts or the challenges that we have in our world, the inequalities that we struggle with. Because nowadays we're having more limited resources, we're having environmental issues, we're having issues that are impacting our entire planet. And if we don't build the bridges, work together, yeah, we need to achieve this to have a better world for everyone.
Charles, you have a question?
Yeah, what all does Fullbright cover in terms of, does it cover travel, living expenses, tuition?
It covers tuitions. It's I use the back and forth at the coming and when you're the public tuition, you have a stipend. You have book allowance, computer allowance. You have for the first, at least for us speaking from, and also it's made also very good among international students. I'm an IIE sponsor for that. I know some people like Fabian, last power, and Middle East, so we have different organizations like. So I know for me they cover the tuitions and the stipend, tuitions like university coverage was 700 from the State Department of my secondary school. My first semester or first year I had 7 fees. I have the house.
Yeah. And so the coverage, they give you the minimum wage, the stipend to live in like the state, it depends on the area where you'll be living. So for example, if you would live in, thinking about the US, if you would be in Ohio, it would be different if you're in Kansas, or if you're like California, it would vary, but it would be in the minimum. So we're considered on the poverty line, but it's a wonderful experience and it's life-changing. They consider that the aim of it is like to go through the period that you're here and to achieve the aim of the program, completing your program and being an ambassador when you come here and even when you go back to your home country. And so that's also for ours.
And also Fullbright during the program when you're a Fullbrighter and you want to, for example, during the summer or any break time, participate in any training or forum or conference which is related to your study field. Fullbright is also covering that. That's a transportation part. So it's providing like it's almost coverage. That's why it's considered like the flagship scholarship of the United States.
When I got it, it was for 10 months, and then they renewed it for another 2 months, so it was a full year of support. And they also gave a stipend for my husband when he joined me for those 3 months. So they do pay for dependent allowances if you bring a spouse or children. I think altogether for that full year, it was like $28,000. So it covered all of my computer, my equipment, my flight there and back, and then enough, yeah, to live. In fact, I lived with some friends who were OU alumni and had a really cheap housing situation, so I was even able to pay my mortgage back home while I was there, which was really amazing when you think about it. So yeah, and I think it varies from country to country. It's a pretty great amount of money that you are awarded, and it's enough to live on.
And I think you wouldn't even know that it's investment suites fund.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really would. When you switch through the suites, and I think very helpful to be honest. And I don't know for other program, but I know IIE they pretty much life happens sometimes. I have people who think with you for like in my cohort, the people that are to finish on time, so they have an extension. But it's a cover that extension. So some is just a summer self or but they still cover.
Yeah, but like you have to put a case for it. It's not that easy. Or even if you want to go to a conference, you have to put a case for it. And for us, they don't cover the with your spouse or children. That funding would be towards you. You would have to manage it. You know, it's different country by country. And IIA that Omar refers it's an international institute of education. Maybe as an organization like nation to grant. And like amount is really very different. For example, in my case, I'm going to study, like I got a 2-year scholarship, and it's almost like £100,000, something like this. They're very different from the country to country. But they are even the Fullbright, for example, in my country covered the like tuition, the payment for TOEFL and GRE that I took. It's covering the visa, all the things, travel. And also there is also an interesting part that Fullbright also allows you to be part of the enrichment activities, which is also dedicated to your somehow it's dedicated to your studying goals, and also dedicated to that part of understanding of American culture. And there is also pre-academic program, also gateway program before going before becoming the real right in the university. You're either participating in the academic program. That's amazing. Very amazing.
Speaking to the enrichment seminar, I think it's one of my favorite experiences. You get to go to this pretty much our core leadership seminar where you folks from in a relatively short period of time. I think that was my first time. I think it's going to be every time first time I met that amount of people from West Country living in the Central Town. They really treat you well. He was at 5-star hotel. It's great. And you meet folks with inspiring stories that you learn from. It was great. I would get that. Experiences that
I believe there are also opportunities to volunteer or work here on campus as a Fulbright liaison for international Fulbrighters who come to our university for their orientation. So if you would be interested in sort of participating in something like that, I'm not sure which department it's through. Is it through? Yes, that's a great way also to meet different Fulbright scholars from across the globe while they're here in the summer for their orientation program.
And also there is something to know about Fullbright. When you're Fullbright, you are not allowed to work, to get money, or to participate in the project which is funded by the State Department. And because you are here just to study, and you are here just to like to fulfill all the things, objectives that you listed in your statement. So you're not allowed, and even when you're going to volunteer, you need to make sure that, for example, if I'm going to volunteer with Omar, I need to make sure that Omar is not getting paid. He also needs to be a volunteer, so he's my supervisor. So there are some restrictions.
Talk about benefit. I think as you mentioned, Fulbright is a great brand. I think even being a Fulbright alumni now, we have a global network of Fulbright is really big. I'm not bragging about it, it's something because I don't know for some people, but even the national having the Fulbright, that's also it's an opportunity. I use it everywhere I go. Sometimes you have to advocate for it, and I think there is also some leadership and professional development opportunity through the international exchange alumni, and they have what they call alumni engagement. You can apply for and lead life-saving projects in your respective community. I think there's a lot. It's not really a lot of benefit now. We encourage everyone to, I think the first step is research it, read a little bit about it, find out more, and see what applies to you depending on
Are there any requirements for you? Like you have to go back after this Fulbright scholarship and do something for your country, home country?
Yes, for example, when you're signing like a terms of like TR, and somehow it's a contract, and for example, in my case, I need to go back to Armenia to work there 2 years. I can't seek anywhere else in the US to get 2 years, and I need just to use my knowledge and the skills that I get from my teaching from my starting career to Armenia and to benefit them. And the issue, but also like the US embassy, they're really very like encouraging your engagement. And they're always helpful. They are somehow making you the part of the community that you already like went through.
I think they're very, as you say, they're very supportive because I also have a tool. I think I don't know if some people, but I know generally the extend program to become a J1 visa, you have that requirement. But I think what the US Embassy, I don't know, particularly in the need, they have many grants to really allow you to get involved. Years you have really crucial. If you are back, you want to fulfill the 2 years, and you want to engage in the communities, you have so many great opportunities that you as a Fulbright have to give you the opportunity to get in those grants and then impacting the communities through ideas and stuff you had here or ideas you had before you do that. And I was going to mention too, among the benefits too, when I finished my master's and I was applying for my PhD, there were schools that really weighed my application because of Fullbright status.
A follow-up to your question. So is it that you don't have to do the 2 years while you're still enrolled because you moved from master's to PhD and you're no longer covered by Fulbright? So is it at the end of your education that you then have to go back?
Yes.
So once you transition from Fulbright to another educational program in the US,
You can come back.
So you have to do the 2 years at the end of that time.
My understanding, I may not be very, this might not be very, but from what I've heard from other Fulbrighters is that, well, if you're transitioning from one academic program to another academic program, they're not going to put any restriction on that transition. But if you're transitioning from an academic program to work, then you must have served the 2 years in your country. But then, let's say, for example, I travel from over the summer for 3 months. I was in the community, I was engaged in the community. That takes out part of the 2 years. So you don't have to leave the country for 2 years straight. You can serve in those activities.
Take the time.
And I also have a question, it's a challenging question. So when I was in University of Michigan, so I saw, I had a kind of Fulbright kind of fellow student in the department. She decided to stay in the United States just afterward. So is there a brain drain issue for Fullbright scholarship recipients? that severe. I never studied that problem before.
Exactly.
But for study abroad, a lot of international students, they finally stayed in the United States, do not go back to their home country.
Is that common? Are you able
that
to
common?
just not go back?
I think, well, I mean, when I look at like the other Kenyan Fulbrighters that I was linked to, they finished their PhD programs, they are watching. Like very few have had to go back home. And in most cases, there's always the issue that, oh, I'm getting experience publishing, trying to polish up my skills, and then I'm going to go back home. And then, I don't know, like, it's just, I think only three, I can only think about three would be able to go back and like they're now working back home, but the majority of them with their master's, PhD, and stay.
For us, like it's a requirement to go back for 2 years. But for me, I know I will be going back home to make impact back at home. So it varies. If a person wants to pursue opportunities here or like somewhere else, there's that opportunity, but it's a requirement to meet the 2 years.
Just as a counterweight to that idea, I love what Salome said about the Fulbright experience in the US actually allowing you to recognize the cultural wealth in your own country, and all of the great resources and talent that is already sort of there.
Yeah, I wanted to add something about the benefits of the Fulbright because I want to pick up on this theme of the brand. I do think it's always been a feather in my cap since I got it, and part of it was once I arrived in Kenya, having that connection to the embassy community. Once people there understood what my topic was about, I was invited to meetings with women leaders from all over the country, talking about the women's movement, the challenges of violence against women, the challenges of women entering politics. And I was able to, be included in these conversations, and then from there, collect contacts and start interviewing people. And my sampling for my interviews and my research really started from those connections from the embassy staff. So I was lucky to be serving in a country where the U.S. ambassador was very strongly invested in empowerment of women leaders, and he really valued the input of women in government and in the NGOs and civil society, and he had really taken a lot of time to get to know people in this movement. So I just really lucked out having that connection to the ambassador and his staff. And once I made those connections, I was able to branch out and get out of that bubble of what I call the golden ghetto of the embassy to, make stronger relationships in the communities where I wanted to go. And from there, I was able to leave Nairobi, go to Mombasa, Lamu, Taita, and other parts of the country. So I do think that, having that connection with that staff and with other Fulbrighters has continued to support me in my research and in my community, and also in my ongoing career. And also went to training in Washington, D.C. with Fulbrighters who were going all over the continent of Africa. So I also got introduced to all the Africanists of my generation who were doing research in Africa and studying. I think it's been not only a deeply cultural experience for me, but also a really enriching professional development opportunity and leadership development opportunity. And I highly recommend it.
Do you still have questions like this?
My last question would just be advice. You could kind of sharing advice throughout the discussion, but maybe like last pieces of advice you might share to would-be applicants or prospective Fulbrighters.
For me, Fulbright has a huge network. Back at home, when I was in the process of applying, I got to find that my previous the director of my program, I was working in a development program, was a Fulbright alumni. And then when I went back home to conduct my research, several of the hospital managers were also Fulbright alumni. So it's a huge network, and seeing that Fulbrighters are making impact everywhere, that's inspiring, and hopefully for us to join that huge network and to continue making the impact. Second of all, earlier we said that it's not an easy process. Take it as a motivation, not something to intimidate you. Invest time and resources towards developing your project, your application. Don't work in it like for a few days because it will need more to develop it, ask people to give you different opinions, get strong recommendations. Because the more you invest in it, the higher chances you have. Because as we shared, it's a definitely prestigious award. It's well supported and it will change your future possibly and develop you in personal and professionally wise. So invest in it as much as you can. And good luck.
I had mentioned this earlier, but I'll say again, always apply even if you're unsure about things because you don't know where it could take you. And even if you're not successful, it can open the door to other really interesting opportunities. And when you are abroad, just have an open mind, be humble, and always take things as learning experiences.
And the only thing is just living yourself, and let nothing scares you. Neither like sleepless nights, nor work, exams, because it's your turn. And if you decide it, just make it like, just get there where you what you want to. I'm never like afraid of applying, reapplying, because one of the participants who nominated from Armenia, he applied like the third time and he got it for the third time. So you don't know what's, but you don't know what's what expects you until you are on the private. Because like Darren talking about American dream, I believe there is also Fullbright dream.
Fullbright dream.
So just living yourself, because if one day you are going to fail, you are going to fail because of lack of confidence in yourself.
Well, I think Hayasan said really what I wanted to say. Believe in yourself. She mentioned someone, obtained Fullbright for the fourth time. The person I mentioned earlier, I asked him tutor for 11 times. He actually got it seventh attempt. That's when he got Fullbright. So if we can do it, we can do that.
And just, like let's say, believe in yourself. Start the process. Don't keep the process. Like, start even typing in I'll do that, and then I'll open it and I'll add my mother's name.
I literally started that. That's what I have accessible.
Yeah, it's just a matter of like starting and then trying to see what you can do, but then also making sure you can present yourself and tell your story in a compelling way. Only you know what you want. Only you know your goals, and only you can tell them the best way you can. I can't tell Samba. Well, I can, but not just the way Samba told it. So it's an opportunity for you to be able to present yourself to the world, and then like trust in the process, in the journey.
Related to that, I always tell applicants, you're in the driver's seat of this application. It's so important to get feedback from many different sources, but then you ultimately sort of have to weigh it and decide how to present yourself, your story, and your goals to this national screening committee.
Yeah, and I'd say do your research. Start early, work often on your proposal, research the country you're applying to, make sure you understand all the local nuances, listen to the news, listen to music, watch films and YouTube videos, start befriending students and faculty from that place, and learn the local language. I cannot emphasize this enough. I really think it's vital to try to speak in the language of people that you're living with. And it shows, even if you just learn greetings, it shows incredible respect to do that. And it can be a very meaningful experience. It also gives you a lot of insight into the local culture. and meet with Dr. Lewis.
Yes.
Because he's such an amazing resource, and it's really important to make connections with the office, make connections with folks in the Center for International Studies, like take advantage of the network that's here on campus. We are here for students and we want to help you. So yeah, good luck.
Let's thank all our wonderful panelists.
Thank you very much for your thoughtful insights and thorough preparation. I'm very impressed. And it's a good learning opportunity for your application process. I think for all of us, no matter whether you will apply for jobs, for other, like for me, for visiting scholarship, visiting professor, those opportunities. So those insights they shared would be very, very helpful. Never give up. And if you want to exchange information or have more following up questions, you're welcome to do so with our panelists. So otherwise, we can end the session. And thank you again very much.
Do you need this?
I need that.
You need it?
Yes, but actually that's for the audience. That's not for you. You can fill out that if you.
Well, it doesn't have. Is it? It says there's no space for grad students. Write grad student in because there's no space for grad.
You can put graduate students.
So do we? Okay.
We have the
Yes.
same water bottle. Same color.